Hello and welcome to another episode of the Eunice Ajim Show. I am your host, Eunice Ajim, and for this episode, I am going to be sharing personal success stories, my breakthrough, and 5 habits and tips that led to my success. Even though we're still on the journey, right? Like it's a work improvement. We're working towards getting better every single day. But if you know my story, you know I've not always been at this stage of my life. I don't come from this industry. Different things have led me to creating the path that I've created today. So we're going to be looking at 5 key habits and tips that you can implement that might be able to work for you as well as you are chasing what I like to call your best version of the African dream. I have shared so many of the challenges along the line of just, building a company and going through this, going through the struggles and all of the likes. But I think when you're going through all of those challenges, it is dark, it is rainy, there's thunderstorm, but there's always that little light at the end of the tunnel that when you get to that path, you eventually see the rainbow. And I think for me, if I'm going to say major breakthrough, I think it was really after I met my husband. And I shared a little bit about it in another video where I was homeless, and then out of nowhere, I was not homeless anymore because my husband offered a place for me to stay. I was struggling with my company, and like I told you guys, it did not matter. I never showed my struggle. So I would still wake up every day, put on my makeup, wear my suits, take the bus, and show up to meetings, irregardless of what day it was. And one day, eventually, somebody said, "Hey, Eunice, I think I know an investor that might be interested in what you're doing. They're speaking on Thursday at this event. I already told them that you're coming. Make sure to show up." And like every single time, I always showed up. So I would say one, show up. The first habit, the first tip that I can give you right now, irregardless of what you're building, when an opportunity comes, always show up and show up looking your best. I showed up to this event, met with this investor, and before I knew it, we were having multiple meetings, and they pretty much offered me to close my company, which was pretty much worthless because I was struggling so much in that company, and offered me a really good initial investment for us to be able to go out there and build a company together. And anybody in their reasonable mind would be like, of course. So I closed the first company and I joined this investor as the CEO to build a completely different company, but with a very similar business model that I fully understood the expertise to be able to grow that company. And I think learning so much along having a co-founder that already had experience. This investor in particular, was not only an investor, he was a repeat founder of a very highly valued company. This company was one of the top companies or top startups in Austin, Texas at the time. And I just learned so much from him on how to scale a product, how to attract customers from a B2B standpoint, how to approach investors, how to raise money, how to build a team, how to grow a team. And so many of the resources that I share with my founders today are things that I know I can actually credit this particular person for showing me the way. And now I get to use that to be able to share with so many African founders across the continent. Not only did being around this particular co-founder and also investor led me to be able to raise enough money to get my startup into, I would say, a better stage, but it also led me to obviously investing into the African continent. And again, I'm not going to share a lot of these stories, but we ended up hiring a software engineering team on the continent. We faced challenges. I went out there to look for solutions to my problems, came across the just the startup ecosystem, started angel investing a lot of my own money. But before I even started angel investing, and I think this is a mistake that a lot of like investors or just like regular people do, they're always like, okay, Eunice, you're always asking us to invest in these startups. Is that the first thing that we should do when we start making money? That was not the first thing that I did. As soon as my husband and I started making enough money, the first thing that we wanted to do in the US, you know that we all have so many debts. We have credit card debts. Some people have student loan debts. Some people have car note debts. And we decided, you know what? We want to build our wealth the right way. So the first thing that we did before anything else, we're going to save enough money to pay off all of our debts. Because debt is pretty much, you're literally just paying interest rate, so much interest rate. On average, interest rate, anything between 11% to almost 30% on credit cards. So you if you don't pay them soon enough, you end up paying the double of what you borrowed initially. So we're like, you know what? We're going to get off all of the credit card debts that we have. We didn't have any student loans. So and the way we structured it was we paid the cards with the most interest rate first. So we're just paying the minimum on like the smallest interest rate, and we're paying the maximum that we possibly can into the credit cards that had the largest interest rates. When we got done with that, the next thing that we wanted to make sure is like we had our emergency funds or emergency savings, whatever people might call it here. And what that means is pretty much making sure that you have enough capital for 6 to 12 months in such a way that if you lose your job, you can still maintain taking care of your family, paying your bills without worrying, oh my gosh, I'm going to be homeless again. And during those times, we always made sure that like we were only spending about 30% of our income and 70% were going into the savings. That's the reason why we were capable of paying off credit card debt in the span of like 5 months. And it was a lot. It was almost $30,000. We were capable of paying it off. And after that, we're like, okay, we want to save at least for 6 months. That way, if something happens, we know that we're taken care of. Things were not as expensive as it is right now. But I think when people, or even us Africans, when we start making a little bit of money, our expenses always go. We always try to live the fancy life, right? We go and we get the fancy cars, we go and we get the big house. And what we end up realizing that we're pretty much living paycheck to paycheck. We didn't want to do that. So even when we were both our income combined, we were doing really good money. We stayed in our little apartment. We were Airbnb-ing our apartment. So we're staying in one room after we had cleared all of our debt. In fact, we actually took those credit cards and put them away, like literally kept it. We're like, okay, we don't want to like use these credit cards again until like we've actually paid it off. After we did that, we wanted to now build our 6 months emergency funds. So like if something was to happen, we knew that we were covered and we didn't have to worry about, paying bills. And like I mentioned earlier, we were pretty much living on 30% of our income combined and saving 70%. And when we got to the stage where we had fully committed our 6 months living expense, which we pretty much did in like 3.5 months, 4 months, we're like, okay, my husband understands really well like how life insurance work. And I think when we're still young, we don't think about death, right? But I think it's such an important thing that if I was to live life today, if I was to die, I want to make sure that my husband is taken care of. I want to make sure that if I had kids, my kids are taken care of. Even my parents, right? I don't want to like die and then somebody has to do a GoFundMe page to send me back to Cameroon. So we both had very hefty life insurances that we decided to put on our names. In the US, there are two kinds. There's a term life insurance. That means that if you get into an accident, which gets you into a really critical condition, the life insurance can pay for you to take care of medical bills and all of that. And then we have things that we call, I can't think of the right name right now because it's 10:30 p.m. and I'm exhausted, but it's another insurance that actually like takes you towards retirement. We like to call it, a lot of people call it different ways, but it's pretty much an insurance that helps you put enough money into it. And then when you get at a certain stage of your life, you can actually borrow money from your life insurance instead of borrowing money from the bank at very low interest rate. And then when you grow older, when you get to a certain stage, the life insurance that paying you is pretty much like a retirement. So we made sure that we had good enough life insurances for both parties. And then from there, the next thing that we started looking into was my husband has a regular job, so like 401ks was something that we also wanted to make, both Roth IRAs and 401ks. We made sure that we had those investments. Those are typically very like settled long-term retirement plans. We made sure that we had that. And then the next thing was we wanted to invest in the public market. We wanted to invest in a market that was pretty liquid. So if something came up, we could easily take our money out without having to feel like we need to wait 10 years before getting that money outside of the bank. And we did a lot of research. We knew that we didn't want to just be day traders. My husband enjoys doing it, but like he only managed a very small amount of money because it's not his full-time job. He does not sleep, breathe, eat day trading. He has a full-time job. So like sometimes you lose a lot of money just because you're not paying attention when something is happening. So I don't advise you or anybody out there to go and to be day trading. There's some people that are really good at it, but when you look at it up close, you probably realize that you're losing more money than you're actually making money. I know there's always like that drive of like, oh my God, I just made $3,000 today. But you're also forgetting that you lost $7,000 a few weeks ago, right? So that trade, and we didn't want to make that mistake. So we decided we wanted to give it to a fund manager to manage our money. And because we were not making that much money, we had to find a smaller fund, like hedge fund manager, that will be willing to take a few $1,000s versus some of the bigger hedge funds that will not even look at you unless you have $1 million. So we decided to like do our research. We found one, we put some money in there. And keeping in mind that even our emergency fund savings is not in a regular savings account that gives you like 0.1% on your money. We put it in a savings account that gives you on average 4-5% on your money. So like that money is also like working for you at a really good interest rate annually. After we were done with debts, life insurance, emergency fund, public market, retirement plans, then we looked at real estate. I think, like just growing up with my dad, I've always known that like people have different opinion about this. Some people don't believe in like owning a house for themselves. Some people believe that you have to focus on asset and just investing. I don't believe that. I believe in like actually like owning a property that you call home. And that's what we did first. So we bought our dream house. I did not compromise on the kind of home that I wanted. And we bought a really nice house for our first home. Everybody could not believe the kind of home that we decided to buy for our first home, because I was just like, we're going to be in here for the next 5 to 10 years. We're going to make real estate investment, but our home needs to be somewhere that we're very comfortable, and it needs to be the best location, because guess what? Since the 2020 that we bought the home, we've over doubled the value of the home. So just things like that you want to make sure that you're not compromising, because at the end of the day, when you think of real estate, what do you think of? Location matters, right? Depending on like where the location of your home is, that's also how your homes get valued. So we focus on that. We really like took a big step and then built the home from scratch. Took us 9 months. And during those 9 months, it was actually a stretch, because it was not a typical home that you buy as a first home. But because we stretch ourselves, we're actually working harder. We both doubled our income within that year because we were working so hard to make sure that we can get the home that we wanted. When we got that, we started looking at, and I think after that year passed, the following year I did a lot of angel investments, because now we had all the extra money. We had all of like our basic needs. And now it's just like, okay, like where else can we put our money so that our money can work for us? And that's when I started doing a lot of angel investments. That year too, we also like invested in a few other real estate properties that had nothing to do with our primary homes. And then we just started building from that. So it is not like I wake up today, right? And I start angel investing, or even investing in startup. Like, in fact, investing in startup was the last asset class we touched. after we had done a lot of other different kinds of investments. So that was my personal experience and how I got into investing, because I personally believe that that's the best way of building wealth. Like, yes, we can all build businesses, we can all grow our businesses, but if you actually want to see 2, 3, 4, 5, 10x returns on your investment, you have to be able to understand the different asset classes and what works out for you. We have the public market, we have the private market. A lot of the time, public market are liquid asset, which means that you can easily take your money out, versus private market asset is not that easy. You have to be able to it's patient capital. But you don't just jump into those markets when you don't have your basic needs, because investing is risky. You can lose as much money as you invest at any given time, and you have to be willing to be okay with the loss. All right. I think that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Man, I just hope you got some value out of this YouTube channel or out of this podcast, wherever you might be listening in from. And until next time, just go for it. Just go and just live that African dream, whatever that might be. I think I say this a lot, but I think we all